kind of blows my mind. A lot of things are factored into ranking, and one of the things, for example, is student-teacher ratio, right? So as I mentioned, I went to the University of Michigan. Student-teacher ratio, you know what they say it is? They say it's 15 to 1. I went to that school. Most of my classes had at least 100 to 400 students. How is it 15 to 1? Are they lying? Well, they're not lying. Here's what they do. They go ahead and they will count the visiting professors. They will count the part-time professors. They will count the ones on furlough and sabbatical, but they won't count the students that are part-time. They won't count the students that are exchange students. They won't count those, and that's how you get 15 to 1. What's the whole point in this? I know that we look at rankings. Trust me. How do I know? Because I'm Korean too, and so are my parents. I grew up with that. Next to my parents' nightstand, they had 2 books. One was the Bible, and one was the U.S. News and World Report college ranking. Sometimes I wasn't sure which one they read more. The thing that I want to emphasize is this. Take a look. This was a statistic done by the National Association of College Admissions Counseling. Look at that. Almost 60% of high school counselors and college admissions officers say that ranking is not at all accurate. Admissions officers are saying that. Take a look at this one. We're looking at almost 40% saying that the rankings are not an indication of how good a college is. So we just need to make sure that if we're using the rankings, or we just using it as a reference, just please, just use it as a light reference, not something that we need to continually pour all of our energy into. Right? Sometimes when a student brings in a list to my office, it'll have 20 schools, and I say, how'd you get this list? Well, I just copied and pasted the top 20 schools. How else would I get a list, right? And that kind of makes me sad, because I think we need to do better research than that, especially since the rankings are not so trustworthy. All right? So, let's see. Moving along, myth number 8. All right? SAT scores are the most important things. Good ones will get you in a good school, and poor ones will keep you out. All right, Zoe, be queued up. I'm going to ask you a question in just a moment. When talking about standardized test scores, we have to go ahead and be careful. All right? If we take a look here, here is, again, the same organization, the National Association of College Admissions Counseling. It's the largest college organization in the world. It's an organization that we're a part of, and proudly a part of here at YISS. They've asked universities, hey, what are the most important things to you? Here's a list of like the top 20 most important things to the college admissions offices, right? No matter what, number 1, grades. Well, of course. If you're a student, you're going to college for a student, very important. But if you take a look here, standardized testing, okay, sure. It's number 3, but let me tell you this, it's actually dropping every single year. Okay, it's dropping and becoming less and less important every single year. But of course, we do have to talk about it. It's not like that standardized testing doesn't matter, right? So if we take a look, we have a few popular standardized tests that exist, right, for most purposes. And again, this does exist across most different continents. A lot of universities, especially if you're looking at Europe or Africa or Southeast Asia, they'll ask for these standardized tests because your child is going to a U.S. school like YISS, right? So the ACT is a very popular one that's becoming more popular. Actually, here at YISS, we see about almost 2 million students taking the ACT every single year. The next exam is the TOEFL. This obviously assesses English proficiency. There's a lot of question in terms of, well, who should take the TOEFL, who shouldn't? Basically, the answer is anyone that has a passport anyone who has a passport whose country of citizenship native language is not English, right? So, for example, if you have a Korean passport, the native language of Korea is Korean, not English. So, therefore, you should take the TOEFL, right? You have a Canadian passport, you have a UK passport, what other countries? Nigerian passport, these are all that have English as the native language, no need to take the TOEFL. General rule of thumb here. But we do go ahead and have to go ahead and take this and consider this exam. It is something that they feel to be quite important. Obviously, a very important one is the SAT. I have in your booklet information on the new SAT that is now rolled out here in March of 2016. And actually, it's become just as popular as the ACT, if not more, especially here in Asia. All right, so standardized testing, I don't want to talk a lot about that. The information is in your book. I do want to say, try not to take it too much. After I just finished meeting with all the 11th graders, the one thing that I've heard over and over again that really, really made me sad was this conversation. I just met with a student, and they'll say, well, I've taken the SAT 3 times already. Right? And I was like, wow, you're barely a second semester junior. And the answer is, well, I did that because, they're changing the SAT in March, so I wanted to take it before they change it. Totally understand. I get it. The problem with that is that so many of the 11th graders pushed and rushed so quickly to go ahead and take the old SAT, a lot of the 11th graders did not get their desired score. So, since they don't want to take the new SAT, what are they doing? Everyone's wanting to take the ACT now. Right? It kind of makes me sad. We don't have time to take the ACT. A lot of colleges say, honestly, at most, you should take standardized testing twice, once in 11th grade, once in 12th grade. Right? That's really, really something that a lot of universities try to go ahead and publicize. Taking it more than that, it's not worth it. You don't have the time. Forget about the financial component to it. Why would you waste more time on that, something that's not so important? You should go ahead and be focusing on your grades, on your extracurriculars. Right? The next one is SAT subject test. We have about 20 subject tests that are offered. We do go ahead and offer the SAT 2s and the SAT 1s here at YISS. One quick thing about the subject test I want to mention is that for those that are ethnically Korean, taking the SAT Korean is not a good idea. It's not something that is really highly valued, right? That's unfortunate because I'm ethnically Korean. If I took that exam and I got a 600, I would be so excited. And I'd put that on my refrigerator. Except the university looking at me, seeing that I'm Korean, from Korea, they would expect a perfect score out of me. So a little bit unfair, but at the same time, I kind of get it. One thing I do want to go ahead and just on a side note mention about foreign language. Foreign language in universities, I don't know for those that can remember whether you took foreign language in college or not, but foreign language actually is becoming less and less important, and it's being taken less and less every year by college students. Right? And so I'm not quite sure in terms of why that's happening, but a statistic just came out in 2016 that even though there's a decline in foreign language in universities, there's an increase in 4 languages specifically. For example, Chinese, that's up 2%. Portuguese is up 10%. American Sign Language, Zoe, that's you, right? That went up 19%. And Korean is up 45%. Why are people in college taking Korean? I don't know. It's up 45% anyway. I kind of thought that to be interesting. Last standardized test we're taking a look at, and Zoe, if you can help us answer this, we have the APs. We have 21 that we're offering this year, and I think we're looking at offering 3 new ones next year. So potentially 24. I did a little research. That's the most any international school offers here in Korea. I don't say that as a, yay, look at YISS. It kind of makes me sad that we offer that many. But we're offering it because you guys asked for it. Right? But I really hope that there's a lot of responsibility that you guys take when we offer this many APs. So I do want to go ahead and take this time to hear from Zoe just very briefly. Any comments on standardized testing in general? Whether you want to go ahead and talk about APs or whether you want to talk about SATs and your experience. Anything that you can go ahead and share, we would appreciate it.
Okay, well, I'll start with SAT because I took that recently. Well, I don't know about you guys, but SAT 1, for me, I started memorizing SAT vocabulary in sophomore year. I hadn't really prepared much other than that. I just listened to a recording from WordSmart on public transportation. So that's something I just did on my free time. And I actually started practicing SAT 1 in the summer of my sophomore year. I took it twice in junior year and once more in senior year. To be honest, I didn't find hagwons to be all that useful for SAT 1. I just needed their resources. I only went to hagwon to take practice exams, and I found that helpful. Sometimes I just bought packets and went over it with friends. Something that really did help me was making a study group. Is that okay? I made a study group with friends, and it was like a talent exchange. For example, I taught my friend Julia how to write essays, and she's a really brilliant calc student, and she taught me how to do math. We met up 3 times a week and finished all our homework before we did SATs. For SAT 2, I went to hagwon's extra help as a crash course. I didn't go regularly. I just went a week before exams. All right, for APs, this is something I actually feel passionately about. In our school, there's a tendency to take as much AP as possible, but I disagree with that because I feel like AP, you need to wire to your strengths. I'm a total 문과, and I found out the hard way in my sophomore year when I took AP Bio and failed miserably. When we get to select classes, I went to each teacher and talked to them about like my strengths and my weaknesses, and I selected it among the classes I got accepted to. So in senior year, I actually did take 3 APs, which is the maximum AP you can take. But I took a study hall and a TA course, which balanced out my schedule very well, so I could handle that. I took AP Literature, AP Art History, and AP European History, which were all my strengths. I don't recommend just focusing on one area like I did, but if it works for you, I think that's a great idea. But yeah, just finding your strengths and knowing how to just focus on that.
All right, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think maybe next year you should do this presentation instead of myself. Thanks, Zoe. Yeah, I'll leave well enough alone. I think she did a great job with that. Taking a look at myth number 10, we are a little bit more than halfway done. So if you feel like you want to go and stretch your legs, grab some snacks in the back to eat, or either throw up my face because I'm taking so long, please feel free to go and do so. Myth number 10, well, what more of your friends say about a college is a good indicator. You know, I actually kind of find this to be true here at YISS. You know, we're a small community. Once a student gets into a college, it's not a secret, I feel. I feel like students talk about it very frequently and very publicly. So I kind of like this myth in that way. One thing I do want to go ahead and mention something that Zoe did was that she did talk to students that were older than her in terms of getting some information, right? So for example, if you know students that already got into the school that you were trying to get into, feel free to talk to them. But one thing you gotta go ahead and be very, 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 very careful about. Just because that one student got in doesn't mean that you gotta do everything that one student did. Right? Oh, they went ahead and joined these clubs, took this AP class, got this SAT score, so I got to do exactly that, and I'll get into that same school. That's never going to happen. Right? It's never going to happen, so please be careful about that. One other thing about students who go to college from YISS that is very important. Whether you know it or not, universities, they keep track of where their students come from. Right? Which is why I think it's very important to make sure that students go to the right school. But once a student goes to a university says, okay, this is a YISS student, so they have this kind of education at YISS. So if a student goes to a university and does well, that looks great for us. Then they'll keep accepting more of our kids. If they go there and drop out because they do nothing but sleep and party all day, then, well, that kind of doesn't make us look so great. So that's one part about the alumni experience that has me a little bit worried from time to time. Taking a look at myth number 11. We have this in 2 parts. Your choice of college major is very important, and you should choose your college on the basis of the quality of its department in its field. So we're talking about strength of curriculum, right? The second most important thing. Right now, as you may have heard already, it is a scheduling season. Very, very important. So yes, your child needs to go ahead and do well in his classes, but also we got to make sure that your child is taking the right classes. So please, go ahead and check Schoology, check our website, and go ahead and look at the courses that we offer. What questions you might have, feel free to go ahead and look at the course descriptions online. But I do want to go ahead and say something that one of my mentors have said before about scheduling that's very important. He has 5 very important things about scheduling that everybody needs to go ahead and consider. All right. First one, when in doubt, err on the side of rigor. That means that admissions officers, they're watching you to see that you grow every single year. Meaning next year's senior year schedule must look more competitive than this year. Right? It's got to compare to your previous self. Right? Very, very important. Know your capacity to do the work. However, it's important to stretch yourself but not overstretch yourself. Meaning, it doesn't matter if you got 30 APs in your schedule next year if you're failing all of them. You've got to go ahead and make sure that there's a balance, right? And you're able to go ahead and manage it. Third one, breadth matters. So kind of what Zoe mentioned. You want to make sure that you cover your bases, right? You cover your bases. Try to cover as many of the core subjects as possible. Colleges want to see that you have cross-disciplinary activities going on, right? Third one. Fourth, substitute value for value. So this is important because sometimes seniors come to me, or before they become seniors, they go ahead and say, well, Mr. Wilson, I know that I don't like math anymore, so I don't want to take any more math in senior year. Is that okay? Right? Well, according to Peter, who's my mentor, he says, absolutely it's okay. But we need to make sure that we substitute value for value. We have 5 core classes that we should be looking at every single year. Math, English, history, science, foreign language. These 5. If you happen to not to do one of these in your schedule, no problem. You take out math, just make sure you put something else with equal rigor. Value for value. That's what we're talking about. All right? And then fifth, don't settle for good enough. We have minimum requirements. For example, you need 2 science credits to graduate. Just don't stop at 2. See really what you're able to go ahead and push yourself with, and make sure that you don't just settle for good enough. All right? So that's the scheduling component about this myth. The second part about this myth has to go ahead and do with these numbers. Take a look. 36% of students, let me go ahead and make sure that I'm on the right page. I'll just read off the screen actually. Have difficulty adjusting to the demands of coursework. All right. 39% have a hard time developing effective study skills. 48% struggle with effective time management. These are first-year college freshmen. 48% have difficulty getting along with their roommate. I kind of have that problem sometimes too. 61% felt lonely or homesick. 30% of students felt isolated from campus life. 27% of the college felt the admissions or recruitment materials didn't accurately portray the campus. What's the moral of this story? Oh, yes, don't go to college, right? Is that it? Oh, you're going to have a miserable life there, son or daughter, so don't go. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, honestly, we're trying to go ahead and make sure that we don't feel rushed or the pressure to go ahead and commit to something at this stage in your life. Right? You're still teenagers. I have most of the 11th graders coming to my office saying, Mr. Wilson, I don't know what I want to study. And I almost want to stand up and applaud them, saying, praise the Lord, you don't know what you want to study. And then some of them feel stressed by saying, everybody else seems to know what they want to do, but I don't. Right? And my response is, why do you feel that pressure? Because I guarantee you, if we asked 100% of the students who knew what they wanted to do these questions, or 100% of the students who said, well, I don't know what I want to do, and I want to try to go to university where I can develop that, I don't think these numbers would be so high. All right? I'm very curious, and as I was preparing tonight, I feel like I want to ask our YISS alumni these questions and pray to God that these numbers are low. Because I think we do a good job here in making sure the students get to the right college that's a good fit for them. And if they aren't at the university the right fit, I don't think they'll feel these kinds of things. So don't feel so pressured. Okay, you don't know what you want to do with the rest of your life, then we have a problem, son. We got to go ahead and figure it out. Let's go out to the desert and go ahead and have this reflection time and try to figure out what your future's going to be. Don't feel like you have to do that. I don't feel like you have to do that. One thing is interesting. I was at a conference, and the speaker, Thomas Friedman, he wrote The World is Flat. You guys ever read that book? The World is Flat. Here's something that he said. He said that 50% of teenagers right now will be employed in a job that hasn't even been created yet. If that's the case, how do we start preparing for a job that hasn't been created yet? Please tell me the answer to that. If it hasn't been created yet, why are we so pressured to find out what we want to do at this point? What do we need to work on? Work on the good habits that we see on that screen, on that list. All right? That's what we need to be focusing on. Myth number 14, if you're in the top 10 of your class in a good big high school and have SAT scores of 2,200, you belong in an Ivy League school to get the kind of education you should have. Oh boy. This is talking about how many students actually over-apply, right? And take a look at these numbers, all right? So all the numbers here in these parentheses here, these are last year's numbers. This year's numbers are the ones in red, in terms of the number of applications that were sent to these universities. Anyone else bummed out by these numbers? It was interesting because in 2014 and 2013, the numbers actually stabilized. We were pretty happy about that. And then 15, 16, the numbers kind of went back up again. Right? Take a look at, for example, University of California. Does that blow anyone's mind? 112,000? That's the entire city of Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's the entire city of Fullerton, California. My alma mater, Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's the entire city applying to this school. That sounds insane to me. So what does this mean exactly? All right? So things are indeed getting more competitive. All right, we have to go ahead and admit that, right? But here's what it does not mean. Here's what it does not equal. It doesn't mean we have to go ahead and scramble and try to get a more competitive schedule, right? More than what we can handle. Get a GPA that we definitely can't manage. Higher SAT scores, more APs. This is not what it means. It means that we need to nurture a better quality student. It means that we need to go ahead and present a robust application. All right, well-rounded. A lot of college admissions officers don't like to hear that word, but that's true. Students need to be well-rounded. Right? They need to have quality to it. Right? Very, very important. Because you know what, it's kind of interesting, but the University of Pennsylvania, the admissions officer mentioned one year that the number of applications were so high that if they wanted to, they could accept the whole entire freshman class of students that were Asian, from Korea, who were awesome at math, and played the violin. Do you want to go to college that has nothing but that? That would be extremely boring because that was kind of me, right, back in the day. Right? They want variety, right? And Ms. Beatty actually mentioned this earlier, but if you guys haven't heard, there's like this really, really popular article that was just released by the Harvard Graduate School of Education. This is actually in your booklet, and so please feel free to go take a look. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to talk about the 3 highlights of this article that really is important. And please understand, I'm not mentioning this because it has the word Harvard in it. I actually think this article really, really does apply here. They have 3 recommendations. The first one is this: promoting more meaningful contributions to others, community service, engagement with the public good. Okay? Pretty much they're saying, try to go ahead and be involved in extracurriculars that are relevant to you. That's the first thing. They're also saying, try to go ahead and be involved in things that are group related, not just individual. And they're also saying, try doing things instead of doing things for people, try doing things with people. Right? These are the things that are recommendation number 1. I really like that a lot. And again, take a look. This is all in your book. Recommendation number 2, right? Contributions to one family. They're saying things that you do inside the household are very important. You know why? Because there's a lot of people that are privileged. And the people that aren't privileged, they don't get to go after school to a hagwon, or they don't get to go to another after-school activity. They have to go home and help their brother and sister because they need babysitting. Right? They have to go home and go work. And clean, and they need to do something else, and they can't afford to do these other activities. So they're saying, look at the value of the things you do inside your house. So moms and dads, if you see that your children are not working hard enough in the home, please take out this article and tape it to the refrigerator. All right? Also, assessing day-to-day. Things on a day-to-day, how that is important rather than a single incident, like maybe a service trip. Right? And the recommendation number 3. Where it says redefining achievement in ways that both level the playing field for economically diverse students and reduce excessive achievement pressure. So, one thing that in terms of extracurriculars Harvard is recommending, and actually I'm so happy that they mentioned, they said they only want to see 2 to 4 activities. That's it. 3 years ago, the Common Application, which is the most common application, they went from having an unlimited number of extracurriculars to just 10. They said, just give us 10 extracurriculars. Harvard is taking it a step further. They say, give us 2 to 4. That's all we care about. Right? So hopefully that gives you an idea. They want that better quality student of ones that you can really focus on specific activities. They're also saying more APs is not better. And they're also saying the third one, in terms of overcoaching, they want you to be authentic. This is the whole discussion of where I say there's no need to go ahead and hire a consultant. Right? A lot of times here in Asia, families hire consultants who can go ahead and do the college application process for you. And I'll be honest, they can be of value. Right? If you're talking about the fact that a consultant will probably maybe work with, 4 to 5 families a year, and I, in fact, have to work with 78 seniors, yeah, you know, they can give you more personal attention, but I'll tell you this. I am better than they are. I say that without a joking or a comical face because I believe it. Why? Because nobody knows the school better than me. I've been here 14 years. Nobody knows the school better than me. Number 2, I desperately, intimately love your children. You can't go ahead and pay me any amount of money to go and love them more. And in doing that, why wouldn't I do everything that I can to go ahead and help them be successful? Right? And I think that's what really makes us unique and special here at YISS. And I hope that you guys see that during your time here at YISS. Right? I'm not perfect. By any means, my wife will tell you that. I'm not. But I'm certainly going to go ahead and try. I'm certainly going to try and give you guys my best. All right? Okay. Let's go ahead and move on. Myth number 15. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. Let's see, Ivy League colleges are looking for students who don't have excellent grades. Well, basically this translates into colleges are looking for students that have more than just grades, right? We've talked about this all night long. Take a look at some of these things that universities are looking for, right? Leadership, creative thinking, creativity, well-rounded students who are intellectually curious. It's so interesting because the things that they're looking for has nothing to do with grades. It has nothing to do with that, right? So we're talking about these qualities that a college wants to see, and in terms of these qualities, that is going to be demonstrated in the essay. All right? And so if you want to get ready for this question, the essay by far is the most important non-academic component of the application. The essay is going to go ahead and communicate your personality. And every university that I know of, well, any good university that I know of, they're going to ask you for a personal statement. They're going to go ahead and ask you, tell us some important parts of who you are. Why are you the way that you are? They summarize that in 600 words. It's very, 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 very important. Which is why we try to put so much time into it. So your English teachers in 11th and 12th grade, they help you write the essay. I spend countless days and hours and weeks reading essays. I come and do essay writing workshops with your children. I go travel to participate in essay writing workshops because this part is very, very important. And so we need to go ahead and make sure that it's clearly communicated. Your child is important because of this. And that's how we communicate it in the essay. Zoe, do you have anything you can share with us in terms of the essay process? How did you approach it? You know, what are some things that you found valuable when it came to writing your essay?
For Common App or supplement?
Anything, please.
Anything?
Yes.
Okay. Well, for Common App, Mr. Wilson assigns you a summer assignment, and it sounds easy, but he asks you think about yourself and your values and your interests, and just to get to know yourself better. I don't know how other people did it, but I maintained a blog, so I just wrote about, if you go online and you punch in question of the day, there's a random generator that gives you a question to ask yourself. So that's what I did, and I posted it on my blog, and you'd be surprised as to how many of those I recycled in my college essays. So that's what I did, maintaining a blog. As for college supplements, I made a mistake of not researching individual colleges earlier. So I would say start this summer when you have time for juniors who are here. Just start researching and talk to anyone you know who attends the school you want to go. And because they have the most information about a specific program. Colleges like to hear you research them really thoroughly. So don't just put something you find on a pamphlet. And just when you're deciding between two colleges which ones to drop, look at their supplements. Supplements are supplementary questions they ask you. So what did you like about our school? Or why do you think you're a good fit for our school? So just questions that are easier for you to answer. I would recommend that.
Yeah, one of the recommendations that are strategies that they tell you to give a try over the summer is just like to have a notebook. It sounds like very like elementary school, but have a little journal. Right? It doesn't have to have a key on it like you did back in elementary school. But have a little journal and just start writing like 50-word paragraphs. That's it. You're on the subway and something go ahead and pops into your head. Go ahead and write 50 words about it. Right? You're traveling or you're eating at McDonald's and you realize some revelation while you're eating a Big Mac. Okay, write 50 words on that. And then by the end of the summer, you should have like a whole book of like 50-word paragraphs, and you can somehow decide in terms of how or which one is the best fit for who you are, and how do you go ahead and expand that into a 600-word essay. So the essays are extremely, extremely important. And again, we will try our best to go ahead and help with that throughout the course of the year. Myth number 16, joining clubs will improve your chances. So, well, kind of not unless you're a doer as well as a joiner. So do you have any insights in terms of extracurriculars and how you approach it? How do you decide which ones are like, well, I did these and I stuck with these, or just anything you can please add in terms of extracurriculars?
Sure. Throughout my high school years, extracurriculars were my favorite part because they were honestly the reasons I loved school so much. I got involved. And to be frank, I knew the extracurriculars were an essential part of my application process for college. And so I thought to myself, well, if they're so important, why not do something I love? And that's what I did. So I stuck with Model United Nations, mock trial, and journalism since freshman year, and along with volunteer music club. I don't think your clubs have to be academic at all, but my interest just happened to center around those academic clubs. Student Council, Drama, and National Honor Society were my later additions. I joined these clubs because I saw my place in the clubs. I knew there was something I could do to improve the clubs or help the community around it. For one, National Honor Society was really important for me because as its president, I had the freedom to experiment with anything I would like to do, and I got to establish the charter with my vision of aiding the community. But starting this year, as you know, the club rules changed, so I had to choose among the clubs I had. In the process, I chose to stick with Mock Trial, National Honor Society, and Student Council. Basically, what my thinking behind this was, what can I do only at our school? So I had some other clubs that I could have done outside of school, but Student Council, National Honor Society, and Mock Trial were very unique to our school, and I didn't want to give that up, so that's what I did.
Thank you. No, definitely, Zoe. I think you did an absolutely fantastic job with all of the extracurriculars you got involved with. We thank you as a school. All right, so again, that's going to be extracurriculars, being a doer as well as a joiner. And here in number 17, a high school diploma is needed to get into college. Well, I want to use this to kind of talk about 4 unique things that I feel like many people are like, oh, well, why is he talking about that? Well, I want to go ahead and talk about the other options or alternatives to not going to college, right? You're thinking, well, this is why we're here, to talk about college and our future. Well, I want to go ahead and let you know that there's also other alternatives like a gap year. Honestly, if you take a look at what your child will be doing, like, do you think in 1 year's time they're ready to go to college? It's kind of scary, don't you think? Right? I still remember my first year. I had a girl in my hall help me do laundry because we had a maid who did our laundry, embarrassingly enough, when I was back in high school, right? And like thinking about that, like I was so not ready to be a college freshman, honestly speaking. But it's what everybody did, right? So the idea of a gap year, I want to go ahead and throw that out there. There's plenty of opportunities that we can go ahead and look at. Community college, I think, is a viable option that I think a lot of our students don't consider enough. It's not just for students who just don't do well. Right? I had a student who was probably ranked number 3 or 4, even though we don't rank, but she was probably one of our top 5% at YISS, but she went to community college for the first year because she just